Picture this: a quiet afternoon. An 85-year-old woman and her pet decide to take a walk along the lake. It all seemed like the perfect setting until a hungry alligator spotted her from just a few meters away, with only one thought on its mind: to kill. How could an 85-year-old woman win against such a vicious beast? There was no time to think, but before she could act, the alligator decided to take the fight into its territory, a place where she stood no chance. There was only one way this could end, and it's one the entire world would not soon forget. But before we get into the story, let's go back to how it all began. Spanish Lakes Fairways. In Spanish Lakes Fairways, an active adult community located in Fort Pierce, Florida, there is no dull moment. But perhaps what happened on the 20th of February 2023 was a little too upbeat for residents of the home. You see, from the outside, it looked like just a normal elderly people's home. But at a closer glance, it's a tight-knit community of over 55 people all living together in an affordable piece of estate. Gloria Serge was one of the seniors living in Spanish Lakes. But it wasn't always like that. She was married once and had an amazing life with her husband. But sadly, her husband passed and Gloria was left all alone. She had no one to talk to, nobody to take care of her, or even keep her company. So after a few years of mourning and being miserable alone, she decided to move into an affordable elderly people's home. And Spanish Lakes Fairways was the perfect place for her. But there was one thing missing. Having friendly neighbors all around was all great, but she knew she'd need someone close to her. Someone she could live with and would keep her company. So Gloria went ahead and got the most beautiful little dog, and over the next couple of years, Trooper and Gloria were inseparable. They played together, sat outside admiring the sunset, and even took regular walks along the lake. It was beautiful. But this beautiful relationship was about to end in the most horrible way. On February 20th, 2023, the most horrific incident happened in the serene Spanish Lakes Fairways, something that the entire city can never forget. It was almost dusk when Gloria sat at the front of her house, petting little Trooper. On the one hand, she was perfectly content watching the sunset and taking in the scenery as she always did every day since she moved here. But Trooper had other plans. More than anything, the little dog loved to take walks and stretch his legs around the estate. Despite her old bones and fragile self, the 85-year-old Gloria couldn't say no to her best friend. So after several minutes of barking excitedly, Gloria got the message. Trooper wanted to take a walk. She smiled, petted her dog, and went in to get the leash. A few moments later, she and Trooper were walking along the lake, and the dog couldn't be happier. Little did the pair know, they were moments away from disaster. Trooper, being the little playful dog, ran up ahead of his leash, but Gloria held on, smiling. However, about 100 meters away, something dangerous and deadly was lurking: a 10-foot alligator. As soon as the beast sighted the pair, it slowly inched towards them, ever so slowly, ever so dangerously. Gloria, on the other hand, was completely unaware of the danger heading for her, and neither was Trooper. But as they walked, it appeared that Gloria sensed something was coming. She stopped and looked the other way, almost like she was waiting for something, or she was thinking about something. Her dog playing by her side as she held his leash. Again back in the water, the alligator was getting closer. Its aim was to get to the little dog. It was the perfect prey, little, weak and defenseless. But even the alligator was about to meet the surprise of its life. Still oblivious to what was about to happen, Gloria and her dog stood by the lake, just within reach of the huge alligator. By now, the alligator had made it to the edge. Trooper was just within reach. But just as the reptile was about to attack, Trooper's sixth sense kicked into gear. He looked up and saw the biggest alligator he had ever seen coming for him. So he did the only thing he could, run as fast as his little legs could carry him. By this time, Gloria's attention was drawn to the ruckus, and so she glanced towards where the noise was coming from. Her eyes widened with shock. But despite the situation, she had no desire to run to safety. Neither did she want to call for help. Her first instinct was to get Trooper out of danger. As the little dog pulled on the leash in her hands, it threw her off balance a bit, and she fell to the ground. Still, Gloria wanted to save her dog, so she pulled on the leash to get Trooper away from the alligator's jaws. But this presented a bigger problem. Now that the dog was safe, she was next. And right now, she was a sitting duck. And sure enough, almost like the alligator was pissed off about the fact that she took his meal away, he turned towards poor Gloria. Gloria was so scared she couldn't move for a second. As the alligator inched towards her like a predator slowly teasing its prey, nothing else seemed to matter. Gloria's life flashed before her eyes. She couldn't move, she couldn't speak, she couldn't even call for help. All she could do was pray and hope to come out of this alive. Trooper, on the other hand, didn't want to leave his beloved friend. He stayed close by, barking hysterically at the alligator. As fate would have it, another elderly woman in her own home heard all the noise and glanced through her window. She couldn't believe her eyes. She grabbed her phone and called 911 as she headed right towards the lake to help her neighbor. But sadly, the alligator was smarter than it looked. It immediately latched onto Gloria's body and chomped down on her skin. Gloria screamed from pain and waved frantically, hoping someone would hear her. Her neighbor kept running towards the scene as she stayed on the phone with the 911 operative, informing them of the horrific incident playing before her eyes.
Oh my God! The alligator's got her!
Suddenly, the alligator decided to stop playing games and began to drag Gloria's body into the water. Gloria tried to struggle. She tried to fight, but it wasn't working. There was only so much her frail body could do. She tried to grab onto the sand so the alligator didn't drown her, but the beast was stronger. She kicked and screamed and called for help again, but the neighbor was still far off. With all its strength, the reptile dragged her along into the water. She could feel her end coming. She could feel her strength diminishing. She took one last look at her dog, and the next moment she found herself in the water. She couldn't breathe, nor could she swim back up to shore. The alligator began to bite and tear into her skin beneath the water. It was his territory now, and there was nothing she could do.
It's too late! It's too late!
So she let go. As soon as the neighbor reached the lake, Gloria was already submerged with the alligator. The neighbor thought for a moment she couldn't dive into the lake. She would surely drown, or the alligator would get her too. There was little she could do, but she could at least try. So she grabbed a long pole and held it over the lake in hopes that Gloria would grab it. All the while, she stayed on the phone with the operator, informing them of what was going on and what she was doing about it. At the same time, she was praying and waiting for Gloria to grab on so she could pull her friend to safety. But there she stood and waited and waited. No one came up. The realization hit her like a freight train. Poor Gloria was gone and she couldn't do anything about it. Eventually, when first responders arrived, the alligator was euthanized. But the shocking event led to weeks of the other seniors living in fear of what evils lurk around their homes. In the end, Gloria was gone, eaten alive by an alligator just meters away from where they lived. Their once serene haven had turned into a dreadful nightmare, one they wished they could wake up from. As terrifying as this story was, this next one is even more intense. Click here to check it out.